I'm Frank Vaughn. It's October 15th, 2024, and I've been asked to weigh in on the growing diplomatic row between the Trudeau-Singh government and the government of India. Now, I could talk at length about whether or not Indian agents were on Canadian soil killing the enemies of the Indian state. I could talk about the deceased, their ties to terrorism, their pictures with weapons, their politics. We could parse this issue, but I have to ask again, why are we parsing this issue at all? Canada is importing, through its open border mass immigration policies, without sufficient screening. We don't even demand that people clear sufficient security checks anymore. We don't demand they speak the language. We don't demand that they adopt the culture. That we don't demand that they have any respect for Canada at all. Why are we even parsing this conflict? This is an ethnic and religious conflict that has nothing to do with the soil under our feet and what we as a nation are trying to do. This problem only gets worse. Canada, because it does not demand some form of loyalty, because it does not demand of our immigrants that they adopt our values, our culture, our language, our standards of living, is leaving the door wide open to nothing but a future of this type of discord. Whether you're on the side of the Khalistanis or whether you're on the side of the Indian government, why are we parsing this issue here? And the answer is, we're doing immigration completely wrong. We have people in the streets chanting "Death to Canada." We have every cause, every ethnic, every foreign cause represented in our streets. They shut down our roads. They attack our universities. They attack our buildings. We have people. I seen a recent instance of a Khalistani gathering where they're firing like they would back home, banned weapons here in Canada. And the government is so quiet about it, and the media is so quiet about it. If that was a group of white old stock Canadians posing with a bunch of AK-47s, it would be national scandal. Everything we are doing as a country is dishonest and crazy. This whole issue doesn't exist. This whole conversation shouldn't exist if it wasn't for the unmitigated yes that we are saying to everybody who wants to pile in. We are demanding nothing and we are giving everything. We have got to stop doing that. Now, I will say this. Khalistani separatists are some of the loudest people in British Columbia right now. They don't just not care about Canada. They want to carve a piece of Canada out for their own Khalistani republic. We are literally, it's not bad enough that we have the Quebec separatism issue, whether you want them to stay or you want them to leave. It's irrelevant right now. It's not bad enough that we have lingering tensions between First Nations communities and everybody else in this country. It's not bad enough that this government sows division constantly by making sure that every culture that's already here is played off against each other maximally. They talk about truth and reconciliation, but the fact is they don't want either of those objectives to ever happen because their plan is divide and conquer. They have to keep us all angry at each other. They can't focus on what unites us, because if they did that, we might actually have reconciliation. They can't focus on what unites us, because if they did, the people coming into this country might have to adopt the values that underpin those unitary principles. So instead, division, cultural enrichment, diversity, multicultural societies. That's what we're told is the antidote for all of our problems. But we are mired right now in a controversy that many call a distraction. It is not a distraction, folks. This is a symptom. This is an outgrowth of the rising ethnic tension that gets greater every single day in this country as Canada loses its identity in the multicultural milieu. Justin Trudeau rightly called this nation, under his guidance, the first post-national state. That means that there is no Canada. That means that there is no real way to push back against this growing madness. That means that under their direction, under 1 million new Canadians, so-called new Canadians, they're not Canadians. Not all of them anyway. Some people come here, they adopt our cultural values, they adopt our norms, they adopt our language, and to them I celebrate everything. To them I extend my regards, because that's how it's supposed to work. Coming to Canada is supposed to be a choice. Coming to Canada is supposed to be a refuge. Coming to Canada is supposed to be a dedication to building our nation into the future for you and your descendants, leaving behind the chaos and destruction and the ethnic conflict and the violence and all of the other practices of your former home to adopt the norms and culture of your new land. And this land, as I highlighted, already has enough issues that we're trying to work through. Canada now has millions of people in this country who have no loyalty to our flag, no loyalty to our institutions, no loyalty to our customs. And they are only consumed by a desire to take advantage of our assets and our resources to maximize their ability to fight, I was going to say their former conflicts. They're not their former conflicts. They brought it all with them. Where's the gain for us in trying to parse this issue? There's only one real answer. We got to stop. We have to slow immigration. We have to ask at the border, will you swear loyalty to our culture and to our institutions? Will you leave behind all the baggage of your former land? Will you swear some kind of oath that you are not just here to take advantage of us monetarily and through our resources? That we're not just some place for you to take advantage of. We're being bled dry by people who don't care about us. You, the taxpayer, who faces an unjustifiably high tax burden, who experiences a decline in return for those tax dollars. We have all of these separate, disparate conversations in politics and economics. We talk about healthcare in a bubble. We talk about education in a bubble. We talk about all of Canada's problems in individuated little bubbles because we are a multicultural, diverse society, and so that thinking transcends all of our conversations. So we make the mistake of thinking housing is separate from healthcare, is separate from education, is separate from Khalistani Republican violence, is separate from the Indian government carrying out attacks on our soil, is separate from the Chinese Communist Party influencing our elections openly and the government of the day opposing us finding out how bad it actually was. We've been converted into a resource colony, and every other nation's national interests are playing out in this country, and we dare call it multiculturalism. That's not what it is. Stronger national identities, stronger ethnic identities, stronger religious identities are using Canada as a stage to play themselves out. Khalistanis, Indians, Palestinians. It goes on forever, and it only gets worse if the door remains open to all of these issues. They are not isolated. They are not in a bubble. Your declining ability to own a home is a result of mass immigration. Your declining ability to get the health care you need is a result primarily of mass immigration. The fact that classrooms are filled to the brim and there's not enough resources to go around, mass immigration. The ethnic and cultural tension that's playing out in our streets with murders and assassinations at the high government level, that is the result of unrestricted mass immigration. It is not the only reason for these things, but it is the biggest reason. It's all linked back to that. This back and forth between Khalistani interests and the interests of Indians in this country who are thinking only primarily of Modi and his government, this does not benefit us at all. This conversation shouldn't even be being had. The only conversation is, does Canada matter? Does it have an identity? Is it still a nation? Or is it not? And if the answer is that it is not, that it is the post-national state, that it is the multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religion, diverse fun fest that everybody's making it into, then all that's left to do is for the individual provinces to ask themselves, do they value the identity within their borders? And are they going to step up and do more to protect those identities? It won't be long now that the Francophone population in Quebec will be outnumbered by Indians, by Chinese, by many other foreign national groups as we bring in 1 million people per year, with the stated objective of getting the Canadian population to 100 million by the turn of the century. All of us, whether you're a Native American, whether you're a Francophone, whether you're an Anglo, are about to become minorities as a result of official state policy. And you can see the evidence all around you that these diverse groups, these other ethnic interests, these other religious interests, don't care about you, they don't care about your heritage, and they don't care about your national identity. And again, I just want to emphasize, I'm not talking about everybody. Not by a long shot. There's a lot of good Canadians out here with all kinds of different religious and ethnic backgrounds. This isn't about you. This is about what you see. This is about what's taking hold. This is about what's loudest. This is about what is more violent. This is about what is most assertive. The people who are asserting their own individual ethnic, cultural, and religious issues, the loudest and the most militantly, will destroy you. That's a fact. And it has been official state policy of the current government under Singh and under Trudeau. I used to believe, when Stephen Harper was in power, that his immigration numbers were far too high. And I would more than welcome a return to the 200,000, the 250,000 that were coming in at the time. We were talking about setting cultural standards at the border, and the left went crazy. They said that was too racist. It's not multicultural enough. It's not friendly enough. We elected Trudeau in 2015, and look at what has happened. I don't have the chart available to me right now because this is impromptu. I've actually got my daughter watching cartoons. I wasn't even going to film this, but I needed to respond. Under Trudeau and under Singh, the foreign-born population in this country is now over 1/3. Over 1/3. So if there are 40 million Canadians, quick napkin math, that's something like 16.5, 17 million Canadians weren't born here. How long do you think it is before English isn't that important anymore? How long do you think it is before French isn't that important anymore? How long do you think it is that Native American land rights are just dismissed by the new populations that start to outnumber us and whose interests aren't even fixed on Canadian soil? Their only concern is their homelands. That's the real problem. So instead of this back and forth as to who's at fault and taking sides and Khalistanis are bad and Indians are bad, and I recognize Khalistani separatism and extremism is a real problem in this country. I'm not trying to be dismissive of that. But the root of the tree, the root of the evil, the root of the problem is our unmitigated yes at the border and our absolutely single-minded, stupid, blind allegiance to this concept of diversity and multiculturalism as something to be pursued at the expense of everything else.